Nobody laughed harder than Arthur when the old man walked through those gym doors. It was a Tuesday morning at Iron Temple Gym, the kind of place where chrome weights gleam under fluorescent lights and mirrors cover every wall so you can watch yourself get stronger. Music pumped through the speakers, some aggressive rap that made your heartbeat sync with the bass. About 40 people were scattered around, lifting, grunting, taking selfies between sets. And then there was Arthur. Arthur, the Beast Richardson, stood at the bench press station like a king on his throne. 28 years old, 6'3", 250 pounds of pure muscle. His Instagram had 500,000 followers. His biceps measured 22 inches around. He'd never lost a lifting competition in his life. Not once. 380 pounds was loaded on the bar above him. The crowd gathered closer, phones out, ready to record another viral moment. Arthur loved this. The attention, the worship, the way everyone stopped what they were doing just to watch him work. He gripped the bar, took a breath, and lifted. The weight came up smooth. Too easy. He could have done more, but this was about the show, about maintaining the image. The crowd erupted. Comments were already flooding his Instagram story. Beast mode activated. Absolutely insane. Nobody does it like Arthur. That's when the door opened. At first, nobody really noticed. Just another person walking in. But then the old man stepped fully into the light, and the gym got a little quieter. Not silent, but quieter. People glanced over, then looked away, then glanced back again like they weren't sure what they were seeing. He was 73 years old if he was a day. Thin. Not in a healthy way, but in a way that said he'd missed too many meals. His jacket was worn through at the elbows, the kind you'd find at a thrift store after it had been donated 3 times. His jeans had stains that wouldn't come out no matter how many times you washed them. His shoes were held together with duct tape. Actual duct tape, wrapped around the soles where they'd separated from the leather. He walked with a slight limp, favoring his left leg. His hair was gray, cut short but uneven like he'd done it himself with dull scissors. His face was weathered, creased with lines that came from worry and sun and years of sleeping in places that weren't meant for sleeping. But his eyes. There was something about his eyes. They weren't defeated. They were calculating, watching, taking in every detail of the room like a general surveying a battlefield. He walked straight toward Arthur. Didn't hesitate. Didn't look around nervously. Just walked right up to where the crowd was still congratulating the Beast on his lift. Arthur noticed him then. Put down his protein shaker. Looked down at this old man in his torn jacket and taped shoes. And Arthur smiled. Not a kind smile. The smile of someone who'd just found new entertainment. "Can I help you, Pops?" Arthur said loud enough for everyone to hear. A few people chuckled. "You looking for the senior center? That's 2 blocks down. Take a left at the CVS." More laughter. Someone filmed it on their phone. The old man would probably end up as a reaction meme by dinner time. But the old man didn't flinch. Didn't look embarrassed. He just stood there perfectly still, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like a blade. "I challenge you." The gym went dead silent. Even the music seemed quieter suddenly. Arthur blinked. "You what?" "I challenge you," the old man repeated, louder this time. "You and me. Right here, right now." For a second, nobody moved. This wasn't real, right? This was some kind of joke. A prank. Someone was definitely filming this for YouTube. But the old man's face said he was completely serious. Arthur laughed then. A big, booming laugh that made his massive chest heave. "Old-timer, you sure you didn't hit your head on the way in? You want to challenge me?" He flexed his bicep, the one that had its own fan page. "I could bench press you with 1 arm." 5 exercises, the old man said, ignoring the insult. "You pick 3, I pick 2. Whoever wins the most gets respect, that's all." Just respect. Arthur's grin got wider. This was too good. And when I win, what do I get? The old man's expression didn't change. You won't. Oh, the crowd loved that. Phones were definitely out now. This was going to get millions of views. Old homeless guy challenges professional bodybuilder. The internet was going to eat this up. Arthur looked around at his audience, at all those phones pointed at him, recording every second. He could have said no, could have told the old man to leave. But where's the fun in that? Where's the content? All right, Pops, Arthur said, cracking his knuckles. You got yourself a deal, but when you lose, you leave and you never come back. This gym is for serious athletes, not. He looked the old man up and down. Whatever you are. The old man nodded once. Fair enough. A young woman approached then. Her name was Sophia, one of the trainers, mid-20s with kind eyes. Sir, she said to the old man, you don't have to do this. It's okay to walk away. The old man looked at her, and for just a second, something soft crossed his face. Yes, I do, he said quietly. My grandson is watching. Sophia glanced around. I don't see any kids here. Not here, the old man said, pulling an old smartphone from his jacket pocket. The screen was cracked, but it worked. He's watching online. I promised him I'd show him his grandpa isn't broken. That's all this is. And if you believe that everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves, if you believe that heroes don't always look like what we expect, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next in this gym is going to change everything you think you know about strength. Arthur was already setting up for round 1. Bench press first, he announced. Let's see what you got, old man. The crowd formed a circle. At least 50 people now. Word had spread through the gym fast. Someone had already gone live on Instagram. The view count was climbing. 1,200 people watching. Then 3,000. Then 5,000. Arthur laid back on the bench. 380 pounds. He'd done this 100 times. Grabbed the bar, lifted it off the rack, brought it down to his chest, pressed it up. 1 rep, 2 reps, 3 reps. On the 5th rep, he racked it, stood up, flexed for the cameras. The crowd went absolutely insane. Your turn, Pops, Arthur said, still breathing easy. Or you want to quit now? Save yourself the embarrassment? The old man approached the bench. Someone had lowered the weight to 225 pounds, less than Arthur had lifted, but still, for a 73-year-old man who looked like he weighed maybe 160 soaking wet. He laid down on the bench. His hands gripped the bar, and that's when Sophia noticed something. Scars. Old, faded scars across his palms and knuckles. The kind that came from hard work, from violence, from a life lived very differently than the one he was living now. The old man lifted the bar off the rack. His arms shook. Not from weakness, exactly, but from effort, from age, from muscle memory fighting against years of decline. He brought the bar down to his chest, paused, and pressed it back up. The crowd was quiet now, watching. He did it again. Slower this time. His arms trembled more, but the bar went up. 3 reps. 4 reps. On the 5th rep, his arms gave out. The bar came down too fast. 2 spotters jumped in, helped him rack it before it crushed his chest. The old man sat up slowly. His hands were shaking. Sweat dripped down his face even though the gym was air-conditioned. He was breathing hard. Too hard, like his lungs couldn't quite keep up with what his body needed. "Point to Arthur!" someone shouted. Arthur grinned, bumped fists with a few people in the crowd. This was going exactly as expected. "Want to quit now, Pops? I'd understand. You gave it a shot." But the old man shook his head. "Round 2, he said between breaths. "Pull-ups. I picked this one." Arthur shrugged. "Your funeral." They moved to the pull-up station. Arthur jumped up, grabbed the bar with an overhand grip, started repping them out. Fast, explosive, his chin clearing the bar by inches each time. The crowd counted out loud. 35! 40! 45! He dropped down at 48 reps, barely winded, drank some water, smiled for the cameras. The old man stepped up to the bar. Had to use a box to reach it. His grip looked weak, his arms too thin. This was going to be painful to watch. He pulled himself up. Chin cleared the bar. Came back down, controlled, smooth. He did it again, and again. And that's when people started noticing something. His form. It was perfect. Absolutely textbook perfect. No swinging, no momentum. Pure strength, even if that strength was fading. This wasn't someone who'd learned pull-ups at Planet Fitness. This was military training, professional training, 10 pull-ups, 15, 20. The crowd wasn't laughing anymore. They were watching. Really watching. 25. 30. Arthur's smile was fading. Wait, how was this old man still going? 35. The old man's arms were shaking violently now, but he kept going. Each rep slower than the last, but still, he kept going. His face showed no emotion. Just focus. Pure, absolute focus, like nothing else in the world existed except him and that bar. 40. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Holy shit." 45, and then his grip failed. He dropped to the ground, caught himself, stood up straight. His chest was heaving. Sweat soaked through his jacket. But he'd done 45 pull-ups. Only 3 less than Arthur. At 73 years old, the gym was completely silent. Arthur stared at him. "What the hell are you?" The old man didn't answer. Just walked to the water fountain, took a long drink. An older man in the crowd, maybe 65, pushed through to the front. His face had gone pale. His hands were trembling. He stared at the old man like he'd seen a ghost. "George," the older man said. "George Miller?" The old man froze. Didn't turn around. "It is you," the older man continued, his voice breaking. "Sergeant George Miller, Navy SEAL, Team 3. And just like that, everything changed. The crowd started murmuring. People pulled out their phones, not to mock anymore, but to search. George Miller, Navy SEAL typed into Google. Images loaded, articles, old newspaper clippings. There he was. 50 years younger, in uniform, standing with his unit. The same eyes, the same face, but stronger, harder, a warrior. "You were a legend," the older man said, tears running down his face now. "You saved my life in Kuwait. Operation Desert Storm. I was pinned down, enemy fire everywhere, and you ran through hell itself to pull me out. You carried me 2 miles with a bullet in your leg." George finally turned around, looked at the man. Recognition flickered in his eyes. "Frank," he said quietly. "You got old." Frank laughed, but it came out like a sob. "What happened to you, George? You were a hero. You had medals, commendations. They wanted you to train SEALs at Coronado. What happened?" George's jaw tightened. "Life happened, Frank. My wife got cancer. Medical bills. Lost the house. Lost everything. And turns out nobody wants to hire a 60-year-old ex-soldier for anything that pays enough to matter." The gym had gone completely silent. Even Arthur had stopped flexing. "I've been homeless for 5 years," George continued, his voice flat. "Sleep in a shelter most nights. Do odd jobs when I can find them. My son won't talk to me. Says I embarrass him. But my grandson, Tommy, he's 10 years old, and he still believes in his grandpa. Kids at school bully him. Say his grandpa's a bum. A loser, so I promised him. Promised I'd show him that his grandpa is still strong. Still worth something." He looked directly at Arthur. "That's why I'm here. Not to beat you. Just to prove to one 10-year-old boy that his grandpa didn't give up." You could have heard a pin drop. Arthur's face had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something else. Shame, maybe. Understanding. 3 more rounds, George said. "Let's finish this." Round 3 was deadlifts. Arthur went first. Loaded up 500 pounds, lifted it with a roar, veins bulging in his neck. held it for 3 seconds, dropped it with a crash that shook the floor. George approached the bar. Someone had lowered it to 315 pounds, not even close to what Arthur had lifted. But when George gripped that bar, something changed. His stance, his posture, professional, decades of training showing through. He lifted, slow, controlled, perfect form, back straight, head up, like he was teaching a class, and an old powerlifter in the corner started crying. "That's the old school military technique," he whispered. "Nobody teaches that anymore." George held the weight at the top for 5 full seconds, then lowered it without a sound. The crowd erupted. This wasn't about weight anymore. This was about something else, something deeper. Round 4, Arthur chose endurance running. 5 miles on the treadmill, he said. "That'll finish this." They got on side-by-side treadmills. Someone set up a camera to capture both. The Instagram livestream had 50,000 viewers now. Arthur took off fast, showing off 8-minute mile pace. Unsustainable but flashy. George started slow. Controlled breathing, rhythmic footfalls. The pace of someone who'd run with a 50-pound pack in 100-degree heat. Mile 1, Arthur way ahead. Mile 2. Arthur started slowing. George maintained his pace. Mile 3. Arthur was breathing hard. Too hard. George's breath was still controlled. In through the nose, out through the mouth, just like he'd been taught 40 years ago. Mile 4. Arthur's legs were cramping. He grabbed the rails. His pace dropped to a walk. George kept running. Same pace, like a machine. Mile 5. Arthur stopped. Couldn't go on. Bent over the treadmill rail, gasping. George finished. Stepped off, barely sweating. Walked over to Arthur. Extended his hand. "You're strong," George said. "But strength isn't about muscle. It's about refusing to quit even when everything hurts." Arthur looked at that scarred, weathered hand, and he took it. "One more round," Arthur said, his voice different now, respectful. "You pick." George thought for a moment. Hand-to-hand combat. 3 minutes. Control and technique. No actual contact. "Just show me what you got." They cleared a space, laid down mats. The crowd formed a tight circle. Arthur threw a punch. Controlled, like they'd agreed. But fast. George moved his head 2 inches to the left. The punch missed by a hair. Arthur threw another. And another. Combinations. Hooks. Uppercuts. All controlled, but all meant to demonstrate skill. George dodged every single one. Not with big movements. Tiny shifts. Economical. Efficient. The way you move when you've been in actual fights where mistakes mean death. Then George moved. 1 step forward. His hand shot out, stopped an inch from Arthur's throat. Would have crushed his windpipe in a real fight. The timer said 47 seconds had elapsed. "You're dead," George said quietly. Not mean, just factual. Arthur stood there, arm still extended from his last punch, realizing he'd been completely outclassed. George stepped back. "You've got strength, son. Now you need wisdom. Strength without wisdom is just violence waiting to happen." The gym exploded. People were crying. Actually crying. The Instagram live stream had 200,000 viewers. Comments were flooding in faster than anyone could read them. Somebody needs to help this man. This is what a real hero looks like. I'm not crying, you're crying. Sophia, the trainer, was already on her phone, setting up a GoFundMe. Within 20 minutes, it had $5,000. Within an hour, $50,000. By the end of the day, $180,000. Arthur stood in the center of it all, watching this homeless veteran who'd just humbled him completely, and something broke inside him. The ego, the arrogance, all of it just shattered. He walked over to George. "Teach me," Arthur said. "Not how to lift. How to be like you." George looked at this kid, this young man who'd mocked him an hour ago, and saw something worth saving. "Strength isn't about what you can lift," George said. "It's about what you can carry. And son, I can see you've been carrying a lot of weight you don't need." 3 months later, Iron Temple Gym looked different. Oh, the equipment was the same. The weights, the mirrors, the mats. But the energy was different. George came in every morning now. Had an apartment? Nothing fancy, but it was his. Clean clothes. Regular meals. His son had reached out, apologized, brought Tommy by every weekend. Arthur trained differently now. Less flash, more substance, and he'd started a foundation. Heroes among us. Helping homeless veterans get back on their feet. George was the first success story, but there'd been 20 more since then. The photo on the wall said everything. George in his Navy SEAL uniform from 40 years ago, young and fierce, next to a current photo of him and Arthur, arms around each other's shoulders, both smiling. Because here's what that Tuesday morning taught everyone who witnessed it. Strength isn't about muscle mass or Instagram followers or how much you can bench press. Real strength is what remains when everything else is stripped away. When you've lost your home, your money, your dignity, when the world has forgotten you exist. Real strength is standing up one more time, making one more promise to a 10-year-old boy who still believes in you, walking into a gym full of people who will mock you and saying 5 words that change everything. I challenge you, right now. Tommy came running into the gym after school that day, 3 months later, jumped into his grandpa's arms. "They want you to speak at my school," he said. About being a hero. George set him down, knelt so they were eye level. "I'm not a hero, kiddo." "Yes, you are," Tommy insisted. "Heroes don't give up. You didn't give up." George looked around at the gym. At Sophia, who'd believed in him. At Frank, who'd recognized him. At Arthur, who'd learned from him. At all the people whose lives had shifted just slightly because one homeless veteran refused to stay invisible. "Maybe you're right," George said softly. "Because that's what real heroes do. They show up. They keep going. They prove that your value isn't determined by your bank account or your zip code or what shoes you're wearing. Your value is determined by whether you quit or keep fighting." And George Miller, 73-year-old homeless Navy SEAL veteran, had never quit a fight in his life. He wasn't about to start now.